We begin the show with Middlesbrough, who, despite being set to lose Rob Edwards, beat Birmingham 2-1. 3-word reviews for Borough. Firmo says, have that, Edwards. Alan says, who needs Rob? Jam says, buy Knob Edwards.
So mature.
Funny though. And Borough Labs says, adios, La Rata. For Birmingham, snap down on our Patreon says, unlucky in defeat. Yeah, we'll talk more about Rob Edwards shortly, Justin. He wasn't in charge of this game. But despite that, Borough still pulling off a magnificent win.
It was a weird afternoon because it was a defiant one for Middlesbrough, because I actually thought Birmingham's display here and performance was pretty good. And I think any other afternoon or any other weekend where Rob Edwards hasn't stole the headlines and created this weird mood around the Riverside, Birmingham, I think, probably come away with the 3 points. But because there was all this enamor surrounding the game with Rob Edwards, it was just a real display of grit and unity, right from the supporters in the stands down to the players, down to Adi Vivesh giving it the old fist pump at the end of the game, which was lovely to see, actually. And as I say, I think Birmingham would have edged a result any other week. I think it's also quite fitting that the goals were scored by academy graduates on a day where Middlesbrough, as it's everything about Middlesbrough, it all came together. It was a strange game in that sense.
Yeah, they had to battle for it in the second half, didn't they, Middlesbrough? Quite literally in the case of Luke Ayling getting comically pushed over by Birmingham goalkeeper James Beadle, but they managed to get it over the line. And Middlesbrough's second, I thought initially was a jammy little deflection, but it was actually a delightful little flick from Hayden Hackney. That was very enjoyable. And yeah, to echo your point, Birmingham had plenty of chances to get something, and on the balance of play, definitely deserved at least a point. I'd say from their perspective, there's still positives to take away despite losing, but a day full of emotions for Middlesbrough and a great result for Adi Vivesh, who was in charge for this one in Rob Edwards' absence. But let's talk about that now, Justin, because Rob Edwards was stood down from this game just hours before. Middlesbrough said in the statements they were disappointed after Edwards expressed his interest in the Wolves job, despite only being at Borough since June. Compensation has now been agreed, reported to be worth £2 to £4 million. There's been varying reports coming out all day today. He signed a 3.5-year deal. What have you made of this whole fiasco, Justin, which, as we say, really unravelled in the space of just over 24 hours?
Do you want me to be really unfiltered, or do you want me to have some sort of filter?
Go on, I would love your unfiltered take, your spicy hot take.
What a rat. Rat Edwards, eh? Come on. He's got previous with Forest Green, hasn't he? Left acrimoniously there to Watford. I'm just disappointed how he's conducted himself. In my opinion, I think Rob Edwards is incredibly lucky and privileged to have the Middlesbrough job. If you go back through his career, his short managerial career so far, he was sacked by Watford. He took a Nathan Jones Luton side up, small tactical tweaks we can credit him for. They became a little bit more expansive and attacking, and that really got them over the line in that season. But then he took them down again, and he pretty much took them down again. Now the Wolves job is free. He takes it after saying he's the luckiest man in the world having the Middlesbrough job, and the club needs to be a family, responding to, obviously, the criticism Morgan Whittaker faced from supporters in September. I think it's terrible behaviour. Terrible behaviour. I really, really am disappointed by it. And you're grimacing to the point where I think you're going to disagree with me, and I'm surprised.
I don't know why you're surprised. I'm glad we got your unfiltered take, because I very much enjoy it, even though I do disagree with it a lot, because I don't blame Rob Edwards. He's going to a Premier League job. Well, no. Hang on, Justin. Let's make it very clear, right? He's going to a Premier League job. He's reportedly getting a big pay rise out of it. And the fact that it's a lot nearer to his family and it's a club he has a personal connection with, they're obviously two big bonuses. I can understand why Borough fans are upset, because, you know, he's done a fantastic job this season. But ultimately, if you're expecting loyalty in football, then you're being extremely naive. And I've just listed 4 big reasons why he would take the job. The only reason against him not taking it is loyalty, which is doing an awful lot of heavy lifting in that argument on whether he should or should not have gone. He's ultimately doing what he thinks is best for him. Whether it's what is best for him is another question, because Wolves are obviously struggling in the Prem and seem to be in a bit of a mess. But it's another crack at the Premier League for him, and there's every chance Wolves still stay up. I'm surprised that Middlesbrough are reportedly so angry about him leaving, because Steve Gibson's been around in football for an awful long time. he should surely know better than to expect a manager to reject a Premier League job out of some sort of loyalty. And the other thing is, one of the main candidates for the role is supposedly Brian Barry Murphy at Cardiff. And if that's the case, you can't be annoyed about Rob Edwards going after less than 6 months to a team in the league above if you also think it's fine to take someone else's manager from the division below when he's also been there for less than 6 months. That's football. These things happen. So, yes, I can understand Borough fans are upset, but what do you expect? This is football.
Yeah, I think firstly, the Brian Barry Murphy stuff was broke by a journalist who's been arguing with a pie this week, so we'll leave it there.
True.
We'll leave it there. And obviously, it's just speculation at the moment. Nothing's apparent. I draw so many comparisons to the Mick Beale scenario, in which I was very critical of Mick Beale, because you're saying one thing as a manager one week, and then turning around and actually going, no.
I think that's different though, Justin, because Mick Beale literally turned around and said, I can't be the first one to jump the ship, which is making it very clear that he can't be the first one to leave. Saying the club's a family and he's so honoured to have the Middlesbrough job and what have you, that's very different, I think.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Because as I say, I think Rob Edwards is incredibly lucky to have the Middlesbrough job because of how his career has progressed so far. And I get that he's getting a pay rise. I understand that. I mean, he's been sacked by 2 clubs so far. So actually, compensation-wise, he's been well financed over the past couple of years, to be very, very blunt about that. So I don't think financial rewards is going to be the big driver for Rob Edwards here. I understand there's an emotional connection to the club, but at the same time, I think it's very different being a player than it is a manager. Like the Alexander Isak stuff, I think was deplorable for him, but you can some way understand it because ultimately he wants to do the best for his career. And I get that Rob Edwards wants to do his best for his career, but is Wolves actually the best thing for his career? I don't think it is. Okay, yes, he's going to the Premier League, but they're winless in 10 games. They're winless in 10 games, and Rob Edwards' only record in history in the Premier League is getting relegated. I think in the next couple of years, Middlesbrough will probably be in a higher league than Wolves, because I think Middlesbrough is a much more attractive job right now than the one Wolves is. Because the only argument you can say for Wolves right now is that they have the Premier League finances that Middlesbrough don't. That's it. The fans are protesting against the club. I think Wolves are a club on the decline, to be blunt. I think it's a PR appointment to take the heat off the ownership that has outside interest in it that they're so far rejecting. And I think Rob Edwards is the distraction to get the fans not on board, but have something positive to shout about in what has been a really, really poor season. So, yeah, I think you have to come at this with a bit more emotion than just looking at it as I think cynically as you.
Why am I the one being cynical? I've given you a load of reasons why he should take the job, and it's just the only reason why, as I say, the only reason why Borough fans think he should be staying is some sort of blind loyalty, which I just can't get my head around, quite frankly. But you mentioned there whether it's actually the best move for his career. That, admittedly, that's a debate for another day, because we could talk about that for all day long, and it's just hypothetical, really, whether Middlesbrough will be in a better position than Wolves or not in the years to come. But look, when it comes to his personal circumstance, it's a club he holds a lot of love for. He's getting a big pay rise out of it. He's playing in a better league, and it's nearer to his family and what have you. That's as simple as that, really. And I just think it's naive from certain people amongst the Borough fan base to think that he's going to turn that down for some bizarre reason. But nonetheless, Justin, we'll move on, because the question is now for Middlesbrough, who do they get in to try and sustain their promotion push? As mentioned, Barry Murphy at Cardiff has been linked, as has Gary O'Neill. He nearly got the job back in the summer. A Tony Mowbray return has been reported, but apparently he needs surgery, so that may put the brakes on that. Carlos Corberan's another one I've seen getting linked in the past 24 hours. Where do you think they should go next, Justin?
I think they're in a really healthy position to go and get a massive upgrade on Rob Edwards. I think if you've been listening since the summer, you know how much of a sceptic I am on Rob Edwards. I think, to give Rob Edwards some credit, he has done a lot of good in the sense that he's righted some of the wrongs that Michael Carrick had defensively. And I think having a manager who has that in mind, i.e. defensive not defensive football, but certainly the structure in mind to make them a solid outfit, is going to reap the rewards of what Rob Edwards has built so far. They are disappointing going forward, so I think they need a manager who can find that balance. I think Carlos Corberan's the perfect blend of that because of what he's done, but it's just whether or not he wants to come back over to England. You know, he's had a fairly decent spell in Spain. I know Valencia are in the bottom three in La Liga right now, and there's speculation there, but I think they're in a really healthy position, Middlesbrough, to go out and get a manager who is better than Rob Edwards. I've seen Alex Neil linked. You mentioned Brian Barry Murphy. I think keeping in with the ethos of bring a manager in who's going to push for promotion but also develop players, that's also important.
Yeah, interesting. If I was in charge of Middlesbrough, I would be breaking my back right now to get Will Still. Honestly, I think that would be perfect for all involved. A brilliant tactician, getting a job at a team in a really good position would suit him perfectly. And the reason the Southampton job went so badly was because their confidence was on the floor. Middlesbrough aren't, are they? They're loving life right now. So I would do everything in my power to get him. Whether he wants to jump straight back into management is another question, but he would be my number one choice if it was up to me. If not, yeah, Carlos Corberan, an excellent appointment. As you say, at the time of recording, he's still at Valencia, but looks like he may be getting close to being sacked. So if he's available and willing, then absolutely get him. Otherwise, yeah, your usual candidates, your Gary O'Neills, your Steve Coopers, I think all would be excellent appointments as well. There's a lot of very talented managers out there right now. And as you alluded to, Middlesbrough is a very attractive job because it's not often a championship job becomes available as a side literally sat in the top two. Like, how often does that happen? So while it's disappointing that Edwards has gone, Middlesbrough can definitely turn that negative into a positive with whoever they get in next, I think. By the way, a slight diversion. We were talking about Birmingham, who Middlesbrough obviously faced this weekend. Well, their American owners have now completed a takeover of the club, Justin, which may sound a bit strange for those who don't follow Birmingham that closely, but basically Shelby companies with Tom Wagner and Tom Brady, etc., they didn't actually own the majority of the club. 51% of the club was still actually owned by Birmingham's former Chinese owners, bizarrely, but the Americans were running things. Well, now they own the entire 100%, which is purely administrative, but is good news for everyone involved at Birmingham. But let's move on, Justin, because after a run of 8 losses in 10 games, Norwich have sacked Liam Manning, the latest coming against Leicester 2-1. It finished. They've done it, Justin. They've finally taken him out into the backyard and done what needs to be done. And let's be honest, it needed to be done after losing to a very out of form Leicester side, didn't it?
And it was a pretty poor game as well, where Norwich didn't test the goalkeeper enough. I think the goal from Mattis Kvistgaarden was lovely, but it was self-made. And I think Norwich were quite lucky that Leicester didn't punish them even more. I do think that. And I think if you're going to get sacked off the back of a performance, it's probably going to be this one because, as I say, Norwich was so blunt. They were flat. Defensively, there was similar sleepy defending that we've seen for a lot of the season so far. I mean, Bobby Reid's goal, Norwich defenders just switched off entirely, just didn't pick up the second ball, and he's got a free shot on goal. It's been the same thing for most of the season. But I think one thing I will point out is Norwich fans do deserve credit for not letting the negativity come in and affect the game. They waited until the final whistle when the whistle eventually went.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like the whole game at last time at Carrow Road, was it, where the boos were like earth shaking at the second goal. But yeah, we should mention that Norwich went 1-0 up in the 62nd minute and were leading up until the 75th. And I think the feeling around Carrow Road was like, oh shit, we're actually winning. What do we do again at this stage? And to kind of disagree with your point just now, I thought Norwich actually played pretty well up until the point they scored, and then normality resumes. They completely capitulated. Bobby Reid, yeah, very poor defending for that goal. I completely forgotten he was a championship player again, by the way, Bobby Reid. But he got the equaliser. And then, you know, sometimes in football, you can just tell a team is going to lose. And that goal in the 92nd minute from Jordan James felt inevitable. And then there you have it, all the boos, the usual stuff we've come accustomed to at Norwich this season. And less than 2 hours after the final whistle, it was finally announced. A decision which was very overdue, wasn't it?
Overdue is understating it. I think this should have been done in October to be really direct. It's far too late for Norwich. It was evident that the players were not quite there. Culturally, it feels like something's off at the club generally. There's a real divide growing between the fans and the players, which is not what you want. And like I said, that negativity has been creeping in bit by bit by bit, and it's reached boiling point now. But it's just, the unity's not existed. And I think with Liam Manning, personality-wise, despite being a local lad, he never felt like he had the local feel, if that makes sense. If you look at Chris Wilder, you can feel it. You can feel Sheffield United just runs through him. Even Jack Wilshere at Luton now, you're getting that vibe a little bit more. I've been trying to think of other examples all afternoon of fans of clubs managing their club, if you like. But it's a very small pool, mainly because it's a risky thing to do. Chris Wilder's a bit of an outlier. Liam Manning, there's a reason why you don't. You want to feel that passion. You want to feel the intensity, the meaning. But you never really felt that with Liam Manning. Never really got across. Always felt a little bit distant. And as I say, it's something you should be leaning into. So, like I said, it's long overdue, and like it should have been done last international break, which was a month ago.
Yeah, I've got a lot of sympathy for Liam Manning. Has he done a bad job this season? Yeah, of course, because Norwich should not be second bottom, and 8 losses from 10 games is plain bad, especially 8 losses in all competitions at home. But he was saying earlier this week that sacking him won't change much, and I agree. Everything going on at Norwich right now has to fall at the feet of Ben Napper, the sporting director. And I'm just repeating myself here because I did a whole blooming video based around Norwich on the second tier YouTube this week. But the long and short of it is £50 million spent in 3 transfer windows, the most by a club who hasn't spent any time in the Premier League. And they've been left with a squad which is seriously regressed and full of unknowns. And this mess that we're seeing at Norwich comes from a sporting director who's been trusted with a lot of money and has spent it terribly, while also selling all the best players along the way. This starts at the top. And I'm looking at the owner when I say that as well, because him coming out a couple of weeks ago and publicly saying he's sticking with Liam Manning. Yeah, it's aged well, hasn't it? So I find it very difficult to portion much of the blame for this mess with Liam Manning, because he's a good manager. He did a brilliant job at Bristol City last season. And I think with everything you said, Justin, about him being from Norwich, he wasn't by any means a bad appointment. I think ultimately he was the right manager, just at the wrong time. And I would not be at all surprised if his successor, whoever that may be, goes on to struggle as well, which brings us nicely on to, Justin, what the hell do Norwich do next?
I think there's another question is what does Liam Manning do as well? Is he burnt for the Championship? It's probably a discussion that's an international break discussion if I ever saw one. But
he'll get another Championship job. I'll be surprised if he doesn't.
Yeah, well, you might have to drop into League One, but as I say, it's difficult. It's difficult because his job has been so bad. But with Norwich, again, I do think they are in a healthy position, because if you look at them as a club, I know they're in the bottom 3 and they are struggling and they need points. They need a firefighter at this point. But they are a well-financed club. I know Mark Atanasio, the owner, said that they're going to back whoever's in charge. I think he meant just Liam Manning, because he was obviously under the illusion that Liam Manning would still be in charge in a couple of months' time. But they said they were going to back him with funds in January. So that's a positive.
Does it matter, Justin, if the money's being spent terribly?
Well, I've seen Papis. This is random. I've seen Papis Cisse playing Sunday League football, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ben Napper went and spent 25 million quid on him, because his eye for a gem is not quite there. This is a bang average squad, we know this, but it needs a manager who can turn an underperforming group of players into a well-oiled attacking unit while developing those individuals, because Norwich are a selling club, we know this. Michael Carrick, I think, is perfect for that bill. I think Gary O'Neill, again, is a good option, former Norwich player, of course. Stay clear of Russell Martin, please.
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming. Any chance Justin gets to dig it at Russell Martin, he will take it. But yeah, Russell Martin is one of the favourites with the bookies for the job, which I think feels very likely given his prior history with the club. But yeah, Gary O'Neill's right up there as well. We'll discuss in tomorrow time how Southampton appear to be sniffing around him as well. And I know who I'd rather go to out of those two, out of Southampton and Norwich. But Brendan Rodgers, his second favourite. That's never happening in a million years. Michael Carrick is up there as well, which I could see happening. Could also see that end in tears, but we'll see. Otherwise, I'm looking at the other managers listed, and I'm just going through them, ticking them off and saying they're not happening. So Whereas Middlesbrough, I think they'll have a lot of managers interested in that role. I'm not sure I can say the same for Norwich, and I don't know where they're going to go next, because when Napa came in as the sporting director, he made it clear his philosophy was to sign young players, develop them. So do they go down that route, or do they simply focus on staying up this season now? I don't know. I guess there is a world in which they could do both, but I won't be backing Ben Napa to find a manager who does that, considering how questionable his judgment has been in the time that he's been in charge of things at Norwich. So if he continues in charge, I would not be at all surprised if we see Norwich continue in this mess. So yeah, it's a big few weeks, not just for Norwich, but also for his future as a sporting director in general, I think. Let's have a look back at how we did with our predictions in Friday's preview show. And I extended my lead once again, ladies and gents. My banker came in, which was Leicester to win at Norwich, whereas Justin Peach's atrocious form continued. Yeah. He drew another blank, his second in a row. And it means over the last 7 preview shows, Justin has won just 4 points from a possible 21. My word. I think we may need to revisit your status as a championship expert soon, Justin.
I'm on a Liam Manning run of form, and as you said, Liam Manning will get a championship job again. So actually, you questioning my integrity here as a championship expert, it's really, really offensive. I think the annoying thing is I was given a choice between Blackburn and Derby. Blackburn as a banker and Derby as an outsider. I was that convinced Nathan Jones will get one over on Wrexham because of that fucking stupid Welsh record he's got.
As I say, it was a bit of a forced narrative that you came up with there. It's a bad weekend. And if we do have to revise your championship expert status, then Benjamin Bloom's only a phone call away, mate. So, we'll see. But the scores for the season now are 17-9 to me. But we'll be back with another round of predictions in a couple of Fridays' time, with it being another international break. We'll see if Justin can make any progress in closing that gap, but it's not looking very good, is it? We'll have a quick break, Justin. After that, we'll talk about a meeting between the top 2 in the division and Ipswich spanking Swansea. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. Just before we get onto some more of the action from across the Championship over the past weekend, a reminder that we've been nominated for Best Football Podcast at the FSA Awards, and we need all the help we can get, ladies and gents. So please click the link in the description of this podcast episode, because we need your votes. As we've said multiple times already, we're up against the proper big boys in the podcasting world. We need a lot of help if we're going to even come close. So please take 5 seconds of your time to vote for us. It will be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Let's go to the meeting between the top 2 in the division heading into this weekend. And a late goal from Ephraim Mason-Clark saw Coventry run out the 1-0 winners away at Stoke. 3 road reviews for Coventry. Sky Blue Goblin says Mason-Clark worldy. Diane says late show. Sky Blue Cal and our patron says another break top. El Hod says 5 points clear for Stoke. Nick on our patron says we won XG. Yeah, what a big win for Cov, Justin.
Yeah, massive win. Such a tight game as well. It went exactly as I called it in our preview show as well. Stoke stifled Coventry. Nothing really clear cut in this game, and a moment of sheer quality gets the win for Coventry. I didn't call that bit. It went exactly.
You predicted a draw.
Yeah, it went exactly as I called it up until Mason Clark pulled out a worldie. That's what I meant to say.
So it didn't.
No, it did for 86 minutes. It did. But in terms of the game, I think this is where you start to believe Coventry. It's just going to happen. It's just going to happen for them because, as I said, there's not so much to talk about and break down from the game because it was so tight. But sometimes moments happen like that and you just think, yeah, it's your year. It's your year. Sunderland had it. Sunderland had similar moments last year. Tight game, long throw. The one time Stoke don't pick up their spare man and Ephraim Mason-Clark executes a perfect bicycle kick. Come on. How's it not your year?
Absolutely class that was, wasn't it? Quite rare to see a bicycle kick on a bouncing ball, but I do not mind it at all. It was glorious. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The game as a whole was very even. Coventry had the more chances, but Stoke probably had the better chances. I was actually strangely impressed with Stoke. I know I've been critical of them this season, but despite losing, I thought this was one of the best performances I've seen from them this season, because they've got up against the side who have, without a doubt, been the best in the division so far, and went properly toe-to-toe with them and kept it really tight at the back when they perhaps haven't been doing that as much as their goals against tally suggests this season. So yeah, I'd give a good thumbs up to Stoke here. It was a very, very good. But it was a defeat for Mark Robins against his former side. Coventry now sit 5 points clear at the top of the table and have a 7-point cushion in the automatics. So that table makes for very nice reading if you're of the sky blue fraternity, Justin.
Yeah, when your nearest promotion rival loses their manager, controversially, if you like, as well, in terms of Middlesbrough, yeah, you're in a very healthy position. But 7 points ahead at this stage of the season, it's no lead, but it is a lot of confidence, isn't it? It's a hell of a lot of confidence. You know, not to be a downer on Stoke for a change, it's usually you. It's me this time. I can't see Stoke maintaining their form for the top two. I think I struggle to foresee.
I 100% agree with that, but you carry on.
Nor can I see Preston doing it, to state the obvious. Ipswich could well steamroll their way into it, but they're 11 points off Coventry right now. Promotion is in Coventry's hands. It really is. It's theirs to lose. And we're just about quarter of the way through the season. What a position to be in. And Frank Lampard, since he took over, has done a very, very good job. And I mean, that's understating it probably, but actually this season they've taken on a new level. I thought there were moments to praise last season. There was moments to actually come away disappointed, I think, and a little bit sort of below par. But actually this season, they've been so switched on and almost near perfect. Yeah, it's in their hands.
Yeah, 8 wins in 9 is ridiculous, isn't it? The form is there for all to see. And it is the kind of form which usually belongs to a promotion-winning side. And Coventry, without a doubt, sitting very comfortably in the driving seat when it comes to going up, aren't they? I do still think, however, they haven't been as good in the last 6 games as the form suggests, because Stoke missed some good chances and Coventry struggled to break them down for a lot of the games. That has been creeping into Coventry games recently. Not necessarily the struggling to break teams down, but you know, the opposition creating chances against them. And look, it doesn't really matter if they keep winning games like they are, because that's the main thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if Coventry's form drops off after this international break. I mean, ultimately it's got to at some point anyway, because they're not going to win every week from now until the end of the season, are they? But I think the signs are that a drop-off of some sort is coming. On the other hand, if they're continuing to win games while not necessarily playing at full throttle, then sometimes that's a sign of a good side, isn't it? So What do you think, Justin, on that?
It's a really good question and a really good debate. But I think the fact is that they've been winning while not playing particularly well. That being said, they've still been better than their opposition in 80, 90% of their games so far this season. So even if they are allowing opposition to creep in, they are still better at attacking than their opposition because they're creating a decent amount of chances. It's only when it flips the other way around, and I just can't see that dramatically being the case for Coventry. They've still got Jack Redoney to come back into the squad as well, which is a really exciting prospect. I think the only thing that can really start to derail Coventry's season, I mean, I've alluded to injuries to key personnel in the past. They've had that. They've come through that period so far completely unscathed. But actually, it's when the pressure starts to creep up, where if the other teams can catch up with them. I think Coventry have benefited from teams below them not quite hitting the same levels as Coventry. But when you're top of the table, that means other teams aren't hitting the same levels as you. Simple as that.
Yeah, the Jack Redoney point's a really important one, because the fact that they've won all these games despite not having their best player for pretty much all of them is pretty insane, isn't it? But the reason Coventry fans are going to get annoyed that I'm poking holes in them, but the reason we're doing that is because they've set such high standards for themselves this season, haven't they? And are miles ahead at the top of the division now. They have undeniably been immense. But what's ultimately going to define Coventry's season is how they respond to when they get seriously hit. Because obviously they've responded brilliantly after losing to Wrexham, but you've got the winter period coming up. There's a lot of games. Coventry haven't rotated too much so far. They've got some strong teams coming up as well. They're sitting pretty at the top of the table now, but not that long ago, they were only a point or two ahead of Middlesbrough. So leads can quickly disappear if they take their foot off the gas. The issue is for them, how much gas have they got? Because I look at someone like Haji Wright, for example. He hasn't scored now since before the last international break. Defensively, they're conceding a lot more chances. So this period after the international break, I think, is going to be huge in what happens with Coventry season ultimately. There was a very bad day at the office for Cameron Burgess, Justin, as he scored 2 own goals against his former club Ipswich. 4-1 it finished between them and Swansea. 3 reviews for Ipswich. Tom says, thanks Cam Burgess. Mauricio on our Patreon says, Agent Burgess activated. Adam says, super Christian Walton. Matt says, starting to click for Swansea. Tim says, Swans are sinking. DJ on our Patreon says, get Sheehan gone. Tyler says, get Sheehan out. Oh, poor Cameron Burgess, Justin. A really bad day at the office.
The thing is, it couldn't have happened to a sort of nicer, more universally liked footballer either, because he seems to be well liked by Ipswich, and Swansea fans have taken to him as well. I mean, such as the character he is, he put out a statement vowing to turn form around. I suspect not directly relating to his 2 own goals, and more from a general Swansea perspective, but look, what's the worst thing that can happen to you if you're playing against your former club? It's losing. But actually, Burgess has set a new standard by scoring 2 own goals. I think the worst thing about these own goals as well, they were horrible deflections. He was actually doing the right thing in trying to get in front of the shots. Yeah. It's just unfortunate the way the ball's ricocheted.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The first one is just so unlucky, isn't it? Because it's Leif Davis. Burgess has tried to block the shot, and Leif Davis is actually hitting it slightly wide, and then he directs it in. And then the second one, it's a cross which he's diverted in. He had to slide and do something because there was a player behind him, so he didn't do it much wrong. But yeah, it's obviously a bad day, and the fact it's his former team who he only left in the summer just makes it very unfortunate, doesn't it? But on the game itself, Justin, a pretty comfortable one in the end for Ipswich.
Yeah, I think it was a case of Swansea fell well short in the first half and Ipswich took the lead. But it took a while for Ipswich to really assume full control of it in terms of getting a healthy lead. Because at 2-1, it could have been different. Christian Walton made an absolute wonder save from Ben Cabango. Oh, yeah. Really was one of the saves of the season. It was fantastic. But the Ipswich are a side that, if you give them a sniff and give them space, they're going to exploit it. And when they do that, they'll take full advantage, as they did. And this was one of those occasions. I mean, Jack Clarke deserves a bit of praise because it felt like vintage Jack Clarke was back with the way he took his goal. And then from there, it was just Ipswich attack. And obviously, Cameron Burgess having a big say in what happened.
Yeah, on the balance of play, Ipswich should have been leading by more than 1 at half-time. Swansea's equaliser, which came just after half-time, was pretty undeserved, but Swansea did play better after that. You mentioned the Walton save. Oh, that was unbelievable. And despite Swansea being better in the second half, they found themselves 4-1 down. And I think Ipswich's strength just proved to be too much. So they look to be well on track. 10 points from a possible 12 now for them. 6 points off the top 2 with the game in hand. So yeah, I'd be pretty happy if I was an Ipswich fan heading into this international break. Not sure I could say the same if I was a Swansea fan, because yeah, we'll overdue a chat about them, Justin. It's 1 win in 7. Calls for Alan Sheehan to go, as we just heard with the 3-word reviews. We actually had loads of people saying Sheehan out, but I'm not just going to read Sheehan out repeatedly. But what do you think of what's going on there?
I'm not surprised there are calls for Sheehan to go. They're in another stratosphere of awful going forwards. There's Swansea. There's Swansea, and then 300 miles east is everybody else. They are in a different ball game in terms of going forwards and creating chances, which is strange because there's such a drop off from last season. Such a drop off. It is staggering. It needs to be studied, which is why I've got some numbers here. 24 points from 13 games Alan Sheehan took after taking over in February. They had 5 straight wins in April last season. They hammered Plymouth, Hull and QPR, all with chances created. Absolutely hammered him on the XG. Where's that team gone now? What's happened in the summer that this team's now reverted to being so... Just a little bit of salt on my chicken, please, sir. That's it. That's literally it. There's nothing to them at all. It's not inspiring. And considering the club spent in the region of £13-14 million in the summer, which isn't a lot, but it is a lot for Swansea, should be getting more out of these individuals, Alan Sheehan.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, because it's a lot of the players there were at Swansea last season still. Mm-hmm. So how they've regressed so much is very strange. But on the face of it, if you don't follow Swansea that closely, you may look at the table and think, it's okay. It's not great, but it's not that bad. But you're absolutely right. The biggest concern is the numbers behind it all, because get ready for some of these numbers, Justin. They are appalling. Sheffield Wednesday have created the second fewest big chances this season with 23. Swansea have the fewest with 15. Yeah. So they're 8 chances clear at the bottom of the table. They've got by far the lowest XG in the division, and remarkably also have the lowest XG per shot. So they're not creating much at all. And when they do, those chances aren't great. Based off all that, it's remarkable, really, that there are 6 teams who have scored fewer goals than them, because they are really living off scraps. Keep in mind as well, though, Swansea also have the 5th highest average possession in the division. So when you hear Swansea fans saying Sheehan's football is shit, yeah, it's ugly reading, isn't it? Because unfortunately, that falls to the feet of the manager. You've got the wing backs there, who are 2 very good wing backs in Josh Tymon and Josh Key. Ethan Galbraith's a great creator from deep, but the attackers Sheehan's working with aren't great. And as soon as they get into the final third, they have no idea what to do with it. Having said that, a lot of the attackers were there last season and were doing fine last year under Sheehan. Swansea have also got the fewest touches in the opposition box in the entire division. So it's clearly a lot of sideways passing with a lack of penetration. And it's quite obvious why Swansea have been struggling so much this season. And you can understand why Swansea fans are so frustrated, because it's not great to watch, Justin.
What is there to celebrate? What is there to celebrate? What is there to shout about when you're at a Swansea game? If you're not getting into the opposition area, where's the excitement? You just go into a game hoping you get into the opposition half at this rate. Honestly, it is bad. And they've been very fortunate that Jan Vopotnik has been exceedingly good from the edge of the box. So it's staggering, it's worrying. There are concerns, and those numbers need to jump up very quickly. They do, because unfortunately you can find yourself in a relegation battle very quickly if you're not scoring goals. Simple. Yeah,
well, obviously that goes without saying. And Vopotnik, he had a fantastic start, didn't he? But the goals have dried up for him now as well. So
I'm not surprised he's not getting the ball in good positions. You can say the players aren't quite good enough in that final third, but ultimately there's a trend with the style of football. It's just not working. It's not clicking.
No, absolutely. Right, we'll have a quick break, Justin. After that, we'll talk about 5 wins on the bounce for Derby and 5 wins in 7 for Hull City. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. It's now 5 wins on the bounce for Derby County. It's after they beat Blackburn 2-1 in John Eustace's first game back at Ewood Park since leaving last February. 3-word review for Derby. Simpson says cross head goal. For Blackburn, Dave on our Patreon says lost physical battle. Joe says threadbare squad stretched. Big Johnny Eustace getting the last laugh over his former employers, Justin.
On their 150th anniversary as well, no less, Ryan. Which it actually involved a raft of Blackburn players from years gone by as well, which was a wonderful hit of nostalgia. I think they played a game at half time, but maybe they should have played the first half. Which may have done a bit of a better job.
He was playing. Give us an idea.
Morten Gams Pedersen played.
He could still do a job, surely. Yeah. He was still playing not too long ago, I think, wasn't he?
He was still on FM24, registered as a player. He's 41 at that point. Trying to think of other players. Colin Hendry, but he's in his 60s.
Yeah, he must be getting on a bit now.
Tommy Spur as well. Anyway.
Nice. Morten Gams Pedersen was playing for Ranheim in 2024, but hasn't played for anyone since. So there you go.
But yeah, basically Blackburn's team from last year coming to beat them this year. It's good stuff. John Eustace, put those snake inflatables away. I assume that might just be a false accusation. But yeah, John Eustace getting the last laugh, as you said. Well done.
Yeah. Great analysis as always. Yeah, no team has scored more headers this season than Derby, and I'm not sure I see them letting go of that stat all season now, because it was the 2 headers which did the job here, included one from Cotton Morris again, who is on fire. And yes, I will mention again that he was 100-1 to be top goal scorer at the start of the season. He's now joined to the charts for that, and he's playing magnificently. But Derby on set pieces is becoming quite the romance, isn't it? This was the 4th game in a row where they scored from one. And then the second half was essentially Derby camped in their own half, really. Blackburn kept launching cross after cross, which I must emphasise is a terrible tactic for trying to score against a side who love heading footballs. And despite all the pressure, Blackburn didn't really come close to finding an equaliser, and it's now 5 wins on the bounce for the Rams. I've got to say, during the last international break, I did not expect Derby to head into this international break as the form team in the division, Justin. We actually had a question. We did a Q&A in the last international break, didn't we? Saying, someone asked us, have your opinions changed on Derby and John Eustace this season? Now bloody look at him.
I know. No, I didn't expect it either. Form and performances were disjointed. They were really poor. And obviously the game coming back after the international break, October international break against Oxford was honking. It was bad. And I started to fear at that point. But I think the strengths of this side, they're unashamedly being utilised. As you said, crosses, corners, headers, physicality. Ben Brereton Diaz hasn't offered much in the Derbyshire, but he's more than 6 foot and he's got an engine. Carlton Morris is a form 9, number 9 in the division. And Patrick Adjumang is pure chaos, who's also over 6'3". And then you mix in bits and bobs like Callum Elders, severely underrated. He'd have got my vote last season for Player of the Year. I think he did, actually. I like Ebo Adams, but Callum Elders was really, really good. And then Joe Ward's right foot is crossing. It's just perfect. It's perfect. And then you get all the dirty stuff done in the middle of the park. So, yeah, didn't expect it. But like I said, they are unashamedly utilising something that's long been overlooked in football, which is just get in the faces of your opposition, kick them, get it in the air, go.
Set pieces, cross, get it on Carlton's bonnet. Yeah, Derby are now on the same number of points as Ipswich, which feels mad, doesn't it? But look, it's been a crazy turnaround. Have they been the flashiest of wins? No, absolutely not. They've had a fair bit of fortune go their way as well during these 5 results, but you wouldn't expect anything else with a John Eustace team because they've been so much better at the back. Really should have kept more clean sheets in the last few games to show that, if I'm being slightly nitpicky. And the results keep on coming. So the question is now, Justin, how far could Derby go this season?
I think there are limits to what this Derby side can achieve. I think a 5-game winning spell, run of form, is really impressive and does deserve a lot of praise. But they are guilty of conceding high value shots in certain games, if you like. Zetterstrom in goal is really doing his job. He's been incredible over the last 7 or 8 games, actually. I think if you were to look at the underlying data, they are yet to really control a game and nullify opposition for 90 minutes. So that's something that they do need to improve upon. I'd like to see a little bit more creativity in this team, because the reason why I went for Blackburn as my banker in the preview show is because I thought maybe, just maybe, the one thing that Derby are good at, Blackburn would try and nullify, and they didn't, which is crosses and headers. So getting the likes of Bobby Clark impacting the play, getting Brereton Diaz into good shooting positions as well, can do more of that. So there are a lot of improvements, but I think it's going to be a slow build, but it's certainly a lot of positivity, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. I'm feeling very positive right now because John Eustace in the past has had teams challenging for the top 6 despite not having the greatest set of resources at his disposal, and he's been given the most resources he's had so far with Derby. So how far could they go this season? Who knows? Top 6, why not? There's still players to come back into the team as well. So I'm excited as a Derby fan, the most excited I've been about a Derby team in a while. And to be honest, even if it's just a season of progress, I'll be happy. But right now, it feels like anything is possible, considering how wide open this league is this season as well. That's a really important point to emphasise as well. It's 5 wins in 7 for Hull City, the latest coming in a 3-2 win over Portsmouth. 3 word reviews for Hull. Miles says top 6 Tigers. Sue says 5th place Tigers. Tom says respect Sergei Yukirevich. Alfie says Sergei's the bollocks. For Portsmouth, Andreas on our Patreon says bad form continues. Paul says weekend ruined early. What a cracking game this was, Justin.
I've said this before. Best value season ticket is at the NKM Stadium. I think all you can do is praise Hull here. They're the only side who really embrace the chaos. They take as many punches as they give out, and they do so playing a really attractive brand of football. Some one-touch stuff at times here. Really, really nice. Hull getting pegged back twice. Did they stop what they're doing? No. Charlie Hughes just sends the ball into Joe Gelhardt, which with a touch that was genuinely world class, and it was for the winner. And there you go, just to cap a really, really chaotic but beautiful performance. Yeah, you can only praise Hull. And you say respect for Jurkevic. We've put respect on Jurkevic for a couple of months now because of the style of football and how confidently Hull are playing it. They generally do play, I think, some of the nicest football in this league, probably the nicest football in this league.
Yeah, they're definitely entertaining, aren't they? Their games just continue to be total carnage. Only Coventry have scored more than them this season. They've also third for most goals conceded. So yeah, a great bet for both teams to score. They probably should have won this game a lot more comfortably than they did. Despite scoring 3, they missed plenty of other big chances, and Portsmouth's goals came from a big deflection and what was an unstoppable cross from Josh Murphy. Otherwise, Pompey didn't have an awful lot to show for, aside from the final 10 minutes when Hull were desperately trying to hold on to the lead. But yeah, Hull continue to be the great entertainers in the Championship. It's really working for them as well. They're now up to 5th, only 4 points off the top 2. Imagine how good they could be if they could defend, Justin. But yeah, all going very well for Sergei Jurkevic. Not so well for Portsmouth, though, Justin. It's just 1 win in 11 for them, which has caught me a bit off guard. It's seen them drop down to 20th. They did have a decent start, and we were full of praise for their transfer business over the summer. So it's a bit of a surprise to see them where they are. So are they actually in a bit of trouble, do you think?
Yeah, I'm worried about Portsmouth. I really am. I think not having Josh Murphy available earlier on in the season has been an issue, but it goes without saying his importance in his team is massive. Obviously, he picked up an assist here. He said he put in an unstoppable cross. It was a beautiful one with his left foot. But in terms of actually carrying the ball into dangerous areas, he's miles ahead of his teammates despite starting just 6 games. Creatively, the likes of John Swift not done enough. Connor Chaplin has been really, really poor. Colby Bishop is getting nothing. He scored 1 goal all season. Everything's breaking down in the final third, and it's putting a lot of pressure defensively on that team. You do worry when that balance is not quite right. But it's not to say they're not creating chances, because they are. So there's a lack of that clinical edge that they were so sort of effective at last season at times. They were slow burners last season. They didn't get going until around November. So maybe after the international break, the penny might drop. But there are massive concerns in that final third. As I say, there are players just not doing what they need to do in terms of creating, getting assists, penetrating opposition, just not doing it enough.
Yeah, I've got to keep in mind the reason they had a slow start last season was because they had a ridiculously hard start to the season, didn't they? But yeah, I would never expect a team with a front 3 of Colby Bishop, Josh Murphy and Connor Chaplin to be the second lowest scorers in the division, but that's where we're currently at. And it is a surprise because I anticipated Pompey to build on last season, but that's something they're obviously struggling to do. I think another concern is you've got Norwich and Sheffield United below them, who will surely get better at some point. Confidence is quite obviously low now. The best example of that is Colby Bishop, who you mentioned there, stuck on 1 goal for the season. A lot of the new signings were young lads who were almost entirely unknown to us, and bar Adrian Segicic, none of them have really made their mark. You mentioned Connor Chaplin. On paper, looked a brilliant signing. We were raving about that, weren't we? But he's not got going at all. Ditto John Swift. The fact Freddie Potts is now playing a big role in West Ham's revival shows perhaps how important he was when he was on loan at Portsmouth last season and how big a miss he is now. I think the encouragement I would give with Pompey is, you're right, they are creating chances, not an incredible amount, but they're being created nonetheless. And we saw that ridiculous Josh Murphy cross against Hull, that they have got quality to keep creating. However, how bad they are at the back is a big problem, particularly away from home, and their away form in general is also a big problem. Just 20 points won from 30 games since the start of last season on their travels. So yeah, quite a few issues at Portsmouth, and if they don't get resolved, then it'll definitely be another season of fighting to stay up, unfortunately, which I wasn't expecting, Justin.
No, exactly. I think when we talk about managers that we highly rate, John Messina is one of them. He's very flexible, but the style of football is also very flexible, can be very nice, can be dogged sometimes. But also they had a very positive summer. They recruited younger players who have a high ceiling, but they recruited some really, really decent individuals that can come in who have got experience elsewhere, like Connor Chaplin, Josh Knight as well. Players who really complement what they've already been building, and they've done it relatively prudently, if you like. So there are a lot of it was a good formula. It was a very good formula, but it's just not got going yet this season. And it's going to need to get going because, as you said, there'll be teams below them who start to improve. They're in a weak position when it comes to January as well because there are teams around them who've got bigger budgets than Portsmouth. So yeah, very, very precarious time. Need to start picking up results ASAP.
Yeah, 100%. And we finish with Millwall 1, Preston 1. Now, you may be wondering why on earth we've included this game. Well, that's because I have spent most of my weekend just in watching the incredible clanger by Preston goalkeeper Daniel Everson. Oh, my word, it is a thing of beauty.
Proper groin strainer, isn't it? The internet is a wonderful thing, Ryan. A wonderful, wonderful thing. But it has ruined the clanger DVD we'd get for Christmas.
Yeah. This would be front and centre of that DVD as well because it was perfect. It genuinely might be one of my favourite mistakes I've seen while covering the Championship. Because I think the best thing about it is the comedic timing. He builds up to it so well by holding off from kicking it, and he's like, "Oh, should I do it? Should I do it?" And then does the old accidentally kicking it with his standing foot. It's just a classic of the genre. So it's just so good, and definitely one of the most enjoyable clangers I can ever remember seeing in the Championship for a long time. Got to give a shout out as well for Preston's goal, because the back pass by Millwall's Camille Negley was a thing of beauty as well for all the wrong reasons. Completely unnecessary back pass, perfectly splitting his own defence, perfectly weighted as well. All round great stuff. And that was ultimately the difference between these two sides. Not very much, just in 2 mistakes. It was a very tight game, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Alex Neil derby. That's all it is, isn't it? The Alex Neil derby. Yeah. But I think with Millwall, they had to curb a disappointing run of form and then conceding a lot of goals. So actually coming up and playing Preston, who are in form, is starting to pick up points away from home as well. It's actually a very, very good point. And it's a tight one. But when you're pushing for the playoffs, these points can be very, very important, especially if you're trying to stop a bad run of form defensively, as Millwall have been.
Yeah, well, 2 teams still sat in the top 6 after this weekend. Preston 4th, Millwall 6th. So maybe a bit of a 6-pointer, but we'll see if that's the case as the season goes on. Preston striker Milutin Osmajic has been given a 9-game ban after he was charged with racially abusing Burnley's Hannibal Medri. It's been 9 months since the alleged incident happened. He's also been fined £21,000 by the FA. Osmajic has denied the allegations, and in a statement, Preston said they were extremely disappointed by the decision, saying, "We note that the outcome is determined on the balance of probabilities rather than one that is beyond reasonable doubt." Yeah, so I believe the reason this has taken so long, Justin, is because if you watch the footage of the incident, Osmajic's mouth is behind Hannibal Medri's hair. So finding conclusive proof of what he actually said was proving to be difficult, hence why the FA have said it was determined on the balance of probabilities, and it's taken this bloody long for a decision to be sorted out.
Yeah, it's obviously a difficult case, and I think it taking this amount of time. I've seen people criticise the amount of time it's taken, but actually, if you're going to do your due process, it taking this long is not a negative thing. If it takes 5 minutes, he'd probably start to worry. I think one thing I do need to do is praise Hannibal for speaking out about it. I do think it's a very brave thing to do, in especially in modern football, because the backlash you are going to get from certain segments of knuckle-dragging idiots, basically. I think that's a point that needs to be made. And obviously, I know there's going to be a lot of Preston fans furious with the outcome. I'd argue it's probably the right outcome, but that's just, that's me.
We don't know, do we? Quite frankly, no one really knows apart from Osmajic. He's the only one who knows what he actually said, and Hannibal Medri, I guess, as well. I think it is a bit of a farce that it's taken 9 months for the FA to say, okay, we're not totally sure, but we think he's done it. 9 months to basically come to that conclusion is pretty poor. At the same time, I can sympathise with them because this is a unique case where there is no concrete evidence and they need to show they're being strong on racism. I don't want to get into a debate over whether 9 games is fair or unfair, because whether he has or hasn't done it, we don't know. I think the bottom line is it shouldn't have taken this long, but thankfully it's been resolved now, finally. Justin, let's do the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter, all relating to the Championship, because we want to get their thoughts and everything going on. So the first question I asked was this: Who would you rather manage, Middlesbrough or Wolves?
Middlesbrough. Made that clear, didn't I?
I'll go with Wolves because of all the debate we were having earlier. 71% of people said Middlesbrough, 29% said Wolves. Which of these teams is the most likely to finish in the top 6 this season? Derby, Hull, Preston or Stoke?
Stoke. I think it's Stoke. Yeah.
Okay. You say that like it's an obvious answer.
Because they're challenging for automatics, right? No, I think Hull are a bit chaotic for me to be really convinced by them. Derby, yeah, just not quite convinced by Derby either. And Preston, I expect to drop off at some point. I mean, they're losing the striker for 9 games now, so I expect that to impact them somewhat.
I mean, he hasn't scored many goals recently anyway.
Yeah,
but
doesn't really count.
You mentioned
anyway.
Stoke are challenging for the automatics. Preston are only 1 point behind them. Hull are only 2 points behind Stoke. So
matter of
they're all
perception.
challenging for the automatics at the moment. 64% of people said Stoke, 17% said Hull, 10% said Derby, only 9% said Preston. So yeah, no one's fancying them to stay the course. And finally, who are the better bands, ABBA or Queen?
The more time passes, I think it's ABBA.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
good. I thought you were going to say something else there. I absolutely agree as well. ABBA have done so many bangers over the years. And I like Queen as well. But ABBA, I will happily listen to an ABBA compilation where I think Queen's songs over time, they wear on me a bit. Do you know what I mean?
They're exhausting. They're exhausting because they've only got about 9 songs, Queen. Whereas ABBA is...
That's a big claim.
It is a big claim. It is a big claim. And I'll debate anybody on it. But ABBA have got hit after hit after hit. And I tell you what, I know you're not a runner, Ryan, but if you ever do fancy heavy breathing
I won't.
while you're out on the pavement, ABBA, great for your playlist.
What song are you going for?
Voulez-vous. Perfect.
I thought it might be give me a man after midnight.
Well.
71% of people said Queen. So there you go.
Thanks.
They disagree with us, Justin. 29% said ABBA. But there you go, ladies and gents. Those have been the polls. This has been the Secateurs podcast. If you're a Patreon subscriber or a YouTube community member, don't go anywhere. We've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call Some More Time. We'll be talking about Gary O'Neill to Southampton and our review of the new Football Manager. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Some More Time in every single weekend show. And for YouTube members, your Some More Time is available exclusively to you as the next video uploaded to the channel. If you're not signed up yet, audio listeners can head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. And for YouTube viewers, just hit the join icon right next to the subscribe button on our channel page. Otherwise, that's just about time for us here on the Secateurs podcast. We'll be back again on Thursday. This has been the Secateurs podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.